In the quiet hills of Colorado, a couple bought their dream land only to face betrayal, sabotage, and a hidden war waged by a powerful HOA. But what the board didn't know was that this battle had already been won on paper, in silence, and in strategy. This is the story of how one family turned legal traps into triumph and exposed the truth buried beneath the concrete wall. My name is Derek Langley, a 42-year-old structural engineer, and for 2 years, my wife Sofia and I saved every dime to buy a slice of peace. 3 acres of untouched hillside in Colorado, kissed by the sun and kissed by luck, or so we thought. We envisioned a solar-powered eco-home designed by Sofia, an architect with a passion for sustainability and poetry in structure. We wanted quiet mornings, wildflowers, a life built from the ground up with purpose. The price of the land was suspiciously low, but I wasn't naive. My father, Martin Langley, a retired property rights attorney, raised me on the mantra, cheap land carries weight. Know how to lift it. The catch revealed itself quickly. The only access road wound through hillside bluffs, a gated community run by an iron-fisted homeowners association. The president, Marilyn Goss, wore a smile like armor and ruled the neighborhood like her private kingdom. We later learned she had wanted our land for her pet project, a private tennis retreat. She had lost the bid and she did not forgive easily. But we were ready. Martin and I drafted the purchase contract with surgical precision. In it were 2 easement clauses. The first guaranteed us full access via the main road. The second, buried in a dense paragraph, Clause 9b, gave us rights to build an alternate access path through Community Zone C if the first was ever blocked. Zone C, incidentally, ran straight through the backyards of Marilyn and 2 board members. At first, the resistance came as whispers. Sofia and I were the outsiders. Our wildflowers were called invasive. We were fined for unauthorized landscaping $150 a day. Our building permit stalled without explanation. The city zoning chief, Edward Griggs, turned out to be Marilyn's old college friend. Every stone we placed was moved. Every step forward was met with a pushback. But we were documenting everything. Noah, a city clerk and former Marine and a friend of Sofia's, from a community garden project, found emails linking Marilyn and Griggs. Favors exchanged, language coordinated, strategies discussed. It was classic collusion, thinly veiled in bureaucracy. Then came the wall. Overnight, a 7-foot concrete barrier appeared across the only road to our land. A bold red sign warned HOA property. Trespassers will be prosecuted. I saw it, and something in me cracked. But Sofia, God, I love that woman, smiled like she had just won a chess match. This is what we needed, she said calmly. I called my father. Clause 9b, I said. That's all he needed to hear. We filed notice with the HOA and the city. The original easement had been obstructed. We were now legally activating our alternate access rights through the backyards of the very people who tried to box us in. Panic spread like wildfire. An emergency board meeting was called. I showed up with printed maps, easement diagrams, timestamps, and a projector. Martin stood beside me, patient and collected, while Marilyn's voice wavered with panic. Then Sofia stepped up and read Clause 10c, another clause, nearly forgotten, even by me. It gave us non-exclusive lease rights to Lake Crystal, the crown jewel of Hillside Bluffs. It had been a technical inclusion tied to the land boundaries, part of a municipal legacy easement. Technically valid, legally binding, signed by the board. Marilyn's voice cracked. You're stealing our lake. Numb, Martin said. You signed it away when you walled off our road. The room fell silent. And then came the murmurs. Neighbors who had been quietly bullied, fined for flowers, harassed over paint colors, started speaking up. 17 households submitted complaints within the week. The board, once untouchable, began to crumble. We offered a deal. Tear down the wall. Cancel the fines. Rescind the zoning objections. Pay restitution. Resign. It wasn't even close. The vote passed. And Marilyn, Trent, and Linda, vice president and treasurer, were ousted. Griggs was placed under investigation. A temporary committee was formed, led by Noah and a retired judge named Eleanor Quinn. But justice never arrives clean. 3 weeks into construction, vandals struck. Our solar panels were smashed. Our water tanks were filled with sand. Drone footage revealed the culprit workers from Apex Contracting, Maryland's favored builder. We posted the footage anonymously on the community Facebook group. It spread like fire. By nightfall, police were at Apex's warehouse. The investigation unearthed fake invoices, unauthorized expense reports, and over $47,000 embezzled by Marilyn for personal luxury trips. She was arrested the following week, and still, we built. 3 months later, our frame stood tall and proud. The sun bounced off our panels. The lake shimmered beyond our backyard. Sofia led local children in designing a native pollinator garden near the shoreline. The same neighbors who once looked past us now brought baked goods and tools. There was no pride left in silence, only strength in standing together. The new HOA president, Claire Morgan, had once been the quiet bookkeeper. Now, she was fire and fairness in one. She established a whistleblower clause, reviewed all fines, rebuilt trust. At our housewarming, Martin raised a glass of wine and said, "They signed their own doom with a pen and pride." Later that night, I stood on the porch, watching moonlight ripple across Lake Crystal. A hand-carved sign stood at the edge of the dock. Crystal View, sponsored by the Langley family. The next morning, a letter arrived, a lawyer demanding we remove the sign. I tossed it into the fireplace. Not everything deserves a fight, but when it does, you'd better come prepared.